Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And today we're going to continue with our literature unit, and it's all about this fairy tale from Denmark. It happens to involve the singing of the nightingale, and also the singing of a mechanical nightingale, which knew how to sing a waltz. So I guess like you, I would prefer the natural sound of the nightingale rather than an artificial song, but hey, maybe sometimes we might be fooled by one of those songs.
I love music boxes and stuff, and that's what I kind of imagine the artificial nightingale sounding like, that you have to wind it up. But if I could have a real bird singing to me, that's what I'd pick.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So we're going to actually do some literary criticism of the story today. So let's read through our article right now, and we'll be back shortly to discuss it. Hans Christian Andersen's The Nightingale reads like a romantic fairy tale, but it also communicates important concepts about art, the natural versus the artificial, and freedom. The Nightingale is an example of an artist. Her songs not only sound superb, but also serve as narratives about the world. Each of her songs is distinctive and new whenever she sings. She also knows the value of her own art. The nightingale tells the noble who invites her to the palace that, "My song sounds best in the green wood." In this way, she warns that her song shouldn't be seen as merely entertainment, but as something of real significance. The disparity between the natural and artificial is also a major theme. The living nightingale is a natural creature at home in the woods where anyone may pass through, while the emperor and his court keep themselves in a man-made palace with carefully constructed gardens. Although the living nightingale's songs are deeply moving, the artificial nightingale that replaces her is deemed to be better because it's more convenient and predictable. To make the real nightingale more accessible to the emperor, her freedom is restricted. She's confined to a cage and only allowed to fly while fastened to a string. At the end of the tale, though, the emperor understands the value of her freedom. Allowing the nightingale to come and go lets him hear from her about all different aspects of the empire, not just what happens within the palace. The nightingale is allowed to express herself fully, and the emperor's worldview is expanded by the art she has to offer him.
Okay, folks, let's dive in. We're going to be talking about some of the themes of this particular fairy tale. Remember, it's written by a Danish author. Hans Christian Andersen is probably how he said it, but I say Hans Christian Andersen because we have a lot of Andersons who live in the States, and that's how we pronounce that last name. So it was called The Nightingale, and here it says it reads like a romantic fairy tale. When you talk about a book or a story or even a newspaper article reading like something, it's not like somebody's reading out loud. It just means that's the flavor, that's the tone you get when you read it. So it reads, or it feels like, you could say that, it feels like a romantic fairy tale. But it also communicates important concepts. Concept means an idea about art, the natural versus the artificial, and freedom. So it's got a lot of different elements in it and some important ideas about all of these areas.
Yep, we've got these concepts, these ideas, and they are about art, about natural versus artificial, and we also talk about the concept of freedom. Now, the nightingale is an example of an artist. So there's the concept of art there. The nightingale does seem to represent art. She's an artist because she sings these beautiful songs, and artists, of course, can be not only painters and sculptors, but they can be musicians and poets and writers and all that good stuff. So that's one aspect there, the aspect or concept of the artist.
Now, her songs not only sound superb, but also serve as narratives about the world. Oh, so when she sings, she actually sings about things she's seen as she flies around. So narrative just means a story. Usually different kinds of events are linked together in a narrative. Superb just means really wonderful, great. If someone describes a performance as being superb or a meal they had at a restaurant as superb, it means they loved it. It was wonderful. It was splendid. That's one of the words we learned in day 1, splendid. But again, she doesn't just sound good. She has something to say with her words. So she likes to, I guess, report back and talk about what she's seen as she's flown around with the freedom that she had. Remember, before the emperor had somebody go out, the Lord go out and grab her and put her in a cage, she was free to fly around wherever she wanted to go and could see different parts of the empire and then talk about them, sing about them. She probably just sings, not talks.
Yeah, we hear about animals singing, and these narratives in their songs kind of describe the world. That reminds me of the Aborigines in Australia. Supposedly, they had these song lines, which they would sing when they're traveling, and their songs would reflect the areas they were traveling through. And yes, indeed, this is probably a similar concept here. Yes, the songs sound superb. They're wonderful. They're really great to listen to, but they also describe the world. And of course, she comes back to sing those songs to the emperor so he can know about what's happening outside the palace. And each of her songs is distinctive and new whenever she sings. So if something's distinctive, that means it is unique and it is characteristic of one person or one area. So again, each song is different. Each one is special. It's unique. And of course, it's distinctive. And also, it's new. It's like you've never heard it before. I know a lot of people like to listen to their old CDs or whatever, and they don't really listen to new stuff. But hey, I like to listen to new music all the time. And of course, new songs are always distinctive, although sometimes they kind of sound like older songs.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that after all of these years, thousands of years, people are still able to come up with a song that isn't exactly like something else. A lot of parts of new songs are borrowed from old melodies, as you know, right? So, yeah, it's very hard to have something that's very distinctive. One thing I like is when I listen to voices, some singers really have a very distinctive sound. If you hear that voice, you know immediately who it is. And there are other singers who sound just like every other singer, or there's nothing special about them or their voice. Her songs were very distinctive, and they were new because she kind of composed them herself as she sang along. So she also knows the value of her own art. She knows that she has worth, that she has value. And the nightingale tells the noble, who is the lord, right? A lord in a court like that, or the royalty. If they're noble, there'll be a lord, a lady, a duke, a duchess, things like that. Those are nobles. This guy who invites her to the palace says that my song sounds best. She actually responds to the Lord and says, but my song sounds best in the green wood. So she knows herself that she just sings better if she's out in her natural habitat in the green wood instead of in a cage inside some big palace.
We should describe that a small forest in England is called a wood.
Yeah.
In America, we tend to call them woods. There was the woods near my house. I used to go into the woods when I was a kid to look for squirrels or whatever. But in England, you'll hear the word wood a lot, like, what is it, Winnie the Pooh and the 100-acre wood, or something like that, the 100-acre forest. It's the same thing. And yes, indeed, the nightingale says, hey, I sing okay in the palace, but I sound much better if I'm free in the forest there. And in this way, she warns that her song shouldn't be seen as merely entertainment, but as something of real significance. So yes, indeed, when we hear songs, we might just think of it only or merely as entertainment. It just makes us feel happy when we hear it, but Hey, she thinks that her songs aren't just entertainment, but they're also something that is significant. They are significant. They're something that mean more than just the melodies themselves.
Right. If you use this word merely, you're emphasizing that it's just that thing, right? So it's not... She's saying the opposite. She's saying her song shouldn't be seen as just entertainment. So merely here just emphasizes that something is only what you say and not better. Not more important, not more exciting. So Michael is now merely a good friend. But a year ago, we were actually dating. So it changes. So he's merely a good friend. He's just a friend. In fact, sometimes we can substitute those two words, just and merely. So her song shouldn't be seen as just entertainment, but it's something that has real significance, real meaning.
Yeah, those songs shouldn't be taken at face value. They mean a lot more. Yes, they sound nice, but they're also kind of a narrative of the world. They represent nature and being close to nature and things like that. So, yeah, songs mean a lot more than just the notes of a song. And that's where we're going to take off right now. That's where we're going to take a break and listen to our Chinese teacher. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们昨天带大家看了安徒生夜莺这个故事，但其实它的主题主要有3个。第一个有关于艺术 art， 第二呢有关于自然跟人造之间，还有第3就是有关于 freedom。我们刚刚讲的3个 themes， 3个主题就出现在第一段的第1句后面一点的地方。Art 逗点 The natural versus the artificial 逗点 and freedom 就是这3个主题。好，我们先看第一个主题有关于艺术，因为其实这个 Nightingale 它就是一个所谓的艺术家的典范嘛，因为他的歌声啊不仅听起来非常的美妙悦耳，还可以当作对于天下的描述，所以对天下的不同形式的描述其实就是所谓的艺术。同样在第一段我们看一下第3句的地方，在这里有一个对等连接词，这对等连接词是片语哦，叫做 not only but also。 好，我们先把它特别圈起来，所以歌声不仅是非常美妙，同样其实也是对天下的一种艺术作品，对天下的一种描述。接着第4句也要稍微看一下哦，因为中文说的是每当他唱歌的时候，他的每一首曲子都是独特的新歌。在这句话第一段第4句最后面的 whenever she sings， 这里的 whenever 其实有强调 every time，强调 no matter when， 无论何时，也就是每一次唱歌的时候。最后面也特别提到这个艺术，当然这个 Nightingale 他也了解自己艺术的价值，因为他曾经告诉邀请他进宫的诸侯，他说我的歌声在绿林当中听起来是最好听的，言下之意就是如果你把我关在皇宫的话，我唱的歌都不好听，我要在我自己最舒适的地方。同样在第一段第5句这个地方有一个限定用法关系子句哦，这限定用法关系子句的先行词是 the noble， 也就是那位邀请他进宫的诸侯，后面的 who 到 palace 可以左右括号，限定这个 noble。 好，接着我们又看到一个 that 好像怪怪的耶，其实这一句话特别注意一下，它的动词是 tell 告诉，夜莺曾经告诉这个诸侯一件事情。 tell 这个字有2个受词，第一是对象，在这里是 the noble， 他告诉这个诸侯什么事呢？这个事就在后面的 that 双引号 my song sounds best in the green wood。 好，所以在后面我们看到的第2个 that 它其实是连接词，连接的就是这个事情加上完整子句，什么事？就是我的歌声真的要在绿林当中听起来才很好听。也就是说呢，他告诫着他的歌曲不应该被视为娱乐，而是应该视为是一个真正有意义的东西。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, let's continue our lesson. Again, we're talking about the nightingale, and we're analyzing this story in terms of the different concepts it presents. So it talks about art, it talks about natural versus artificial, and it also talks about freedom. Now, we describe the nightingale as an example of an artist. Her songs indeed are superb, but they're also narratives about the world. Each of her songs is unique and distinctive, and of course she also recognizes her own value as an artist, and she tells that noble, whether it's a lord or a duke or whatever, she says, "My song sounds best when I'm in the green wood. If I'm in a cage or something, my songs will not sound that great." And she warns them that her song shouldn't be seen just as entertainment, but it's also something very profound. It has real significance. Now, that's one theme here with art. Let's talk about the natural and the artificial. So the disparity between the natural and the artificial is also a major theme. So a disparity is a great difference between one thing or another, or many sorts of things. You could say like disparities between the rich and the poor. Rich people can afford good health care, the poor cannot, and thus they get sick more often and die younger. So yes, there is a disparity between the rich and the poor, and in this case we're talking about a difference between natural things and artificial man-made things.
Fake things, yeah. The living nightingale is a natural creature who is at home in the woods where anyone may pass through and hear her beautiful song, while the emperor and his court keep themselves in a man-made palace with carefully constructed gardens. Yeah, there's a disparity between this dense wood that she lives in and these beautiful, beautiful constructed gardens. If you've been to any of the gardens in Europe, especially, you'll note that they must spend hours taking care of all the plants and the grass, and everything's just perfect. I'm sure if you're an emperor, you can probably hire the best people to take care of your gardens. So there's a big difference because if you're in nature, things just grow kind of freely, wildly. It might not be as I guess, carefully taken care of, but it's actually quite lovely because it's natural, it's nature you're looking at, and not something that man or humans put together. So if something's constructed, it's put together, it's built. And we usually use constructed to talk about building a building, but we also use it to talk about making other things like, oh, I like how you constructed your sentence. This is a really good way to write this sentence using this pattern. So you can construct other things besides buildings and roads and bridges.
Right. Of course, if you get a job building buildings or doing roads and things, you are working in construction. But here, construct is being used as a verb, and that represents the artificial. For a lot of people, especially rich people, a well-tended garden is a status symbol. Of course, you can spend a lot of money tending that garden, hiring gardeners and things like that to show off your wealth. But, of course, there's something to be said for the natural. And here it says, the living nightingale's songs are deeply moving, and the artificial nightingale that replaces her is deemed to be better because it's more convenient and predictable. So yes, although the nightingale songs are moving and they're natural, still they seem to prefer the artificial nightingale, and that artificial mechanical nightingale replaced the real nightingale. And, of course, that artificial nightingale is deemed or considered to be better because it's just more convenient. It's always in the cage. It doesn't want to get out of its cage. It doesn't poop on everything. You don't have to feed it all the time. It's just more convenient. Yes, indeed, sometimes artificial things are more convenient. There are quite a few things out there that we could think of that are better if they're artificial than if they're natural.
Yeah, but I think of a Christmas tree when I think of the difference or disparity between trees that are artificial Christmas trees and real Christmas trees. I prefer the real one, but boy, are they a pain. The needles fall out. You have to get rid of them, and, it's kind of a pain. But, boy, they smell good, and I just prefer them. My mom had an artificial tree, so I grew up with that. Now, if you deem something to be a certain way, it just means that's how you view it. That's your opinion. You've judged it to be that way. And it says here, the artificial nightingale that replaces the real one is deemed or considered to be better because it's more convenient and predictable. If something's predictable, you can expect a certain type of behavior because you base it on past behavior. It's always the same. It's predictable. I have some friends who are very predictable. I always know what they're going to say or do or want to go see. And then I have another friend who's unpredictable and who always wants to experience something new. So it's kind of fun to be that way too.
And the opposite is unpredictable. Like sometimes the weather in Taipei can be unpredictable. You never know if it's going to be hot or cool or sunny or rainy. You just never know. Whereas in some places in the world, the weather is pretty predictable. Like in deserts, it's pretty much always going to be sunny and hot. So yes, indeed, people think that mechanical things are better because they're more convenient and they're more predictable. You know what to expect from them. Now, moving on to the final paragraph here, it says, to make the real nightingale more accessible to the emperor, her freedom is restricted. She's confined to a cage and only allowed to fly while fastened to a string. Now, I know that is a hobby with a lot of people in China. I remember seeing a lot of old people in Hong Kong with birds in cages. Okay,
Me too,
kind of a hobby. They like to get these birds that sing pretty songs. And yes, indeed, these birds are confined to a cage. So here we've got the verb to confine, which means you're restricted there. You're kept a prisoner there. For example, if you get COVID, for example, you'll probably be confined to home, or you'll be confined to a hotel or something like that. In this case, the bird is confined to a cage. It's kept in a cage. It's not allowed to escape, but it can fly, but it needs to be tied or fastened to a string so that it doesn't escape.
So it's kind of like a dog, Your dog wants to go outside and run around, but you have to put it on a leash so it can't just go wherever it wants to. Or you might lose that dog somewhere. Now, this bird had to be fastened to a string. To fasten just means to attach something so it keeps something in place or keeps something fixed so it can't move. So she could only fly so far. Fly as far as the string would let her, and then she'd have to come back. So at the end of the fairy tale, though, the emperor understands the value of her freedom. He finally understands why she needs to be free, why she longs to be free. And allowing the nightingale to come and go lets him hear from her about all different aspects of the empire and not just what happens within the palace. I'm sure her songs and her reports are much more interesting now that she can go anywhere she wants and doesn't just have to sit in her cage and listen to what's going on in that court.
It might be similar to your relationships. Maybe you don't want your wife to get out of the house or something like that. You just want to keep her there. But if you let her go, come and go freely, she'll come back voluntarily and you'll have a better relationship. That's a possibility there. So yes, indeed, if you allow the nightingale to come and go as she pleases, well, then the bird will come back on her own. And she'll be willing to tell the emperor all about the empire. She'll talk about different aspects of the empire. She can fly around and check things out. And she'll happily go back and tell the emperor about the empire. And they won't just know about what's happening inside the palace. Yeah, the outside world can be very, very interesting even to rich kings.
Or rich emperors. So the nightingale is allowed to express herself fully because she has her freedom, which is awesome. I need freedom. And the emperor's worldview is expanded because of the art that she then returns to offer him. So, yeah, he's probably having his horizons broaden his horizons by listening to this nightingale who gets to travel probably a lot more than this sick emperor.
So it's kind of a win-win situation for them both. It reminds me of that old Sting song, If you love someone, set them free.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. It's time now to listen to our Chinese teacher.
当然，第二个主题就是我们之前提到的所谓人造跟自然中间它的 disparity 一个显著的差异。人造跟自然有什么差异呢？在故事当中，所谓的自然就是活生生的夜莺，它是一个自然生物嘛，它就栖息在树林当中。但是相反的对比是皇帝，皇帝跟他的朝臣则是把自己关在精心建造的花园的这种人造宫殿当中。那当然，活生生的夜莺，它的歌声很动听，但取代它的人造夜莺，好像被认为比较好，因为它比较便利，所以大家就觉得说，这个人造夜莺是比较好的。但是真的比较好吗？这是我们大家可以探讨的一个主题。不过在第二段第三句也有一个限定用法关系子句哦，先行词就是逗点之后的人造夜莺 the artificial nightingale， 后面的 that 一直到 her 是限定取代天然人造夜莺的这个人造夜莺。好，接下来我们就来看一下第三个主题了。第三个主题是有关于自由 freedom。当然，皇帝觉得他随时要听就可以听，所以他就在笼子里把真正的夜莺关进去。也就是说，夜莺的自由受到了限制。如果他要飞行的时候，一定要系上绳子哦。这样真的是非常的不方便。所以在第三段第一句，我们看到最后面，这里有一个连接词保留的分词构句，最后面的 while 其实应该是完整的 while she is fastened to a string。 那在这里我们把句子做一个简化，主词动词 she is 都简化，可是前面的 while 连接词保留，可以这么做吗？可以。如果当作者他希望读者不要去理解，不要去错误理解文意的时候，这时候就可以把表示时间、表示原因，或者是表示条件跟让步的连接词保留起来，让文意更为完整。好，那接下来呢，到故事尾声的时候，皇帝终于明白 Nightingale 自由的价值，因为只有允许夜莺自由来去，才可以让皇帝自己听到有关于帝国不同面向的消息。不过我们在第三段第三句这个地方句子很长，我们先把动词抓出来，动词是比较靠近前面的地方 Let's L-E-T-S 让，这个动词的前面就会是主词哦，这个主词是一个动作 allow， 所以用动词 ing 当成句子的主词，允许夜莺自由来去这件事情，让它就可以完成很多事。什么事呢？就可以听到整个 empire 不同的故事。逗点之后的 not just 也当成 about 的受词。好，那所以呢，夜莺既然拥有了自由之后，就可以完全表达自我，皇帝的世界观也因此被艺术拓展了。所以这个夜莺为什么能够流传这么久，就是因为这个故事有很重要的主题，有关于艺术，还有关于自然人造以及自由。以上是我们今天的内容，我是安娜，我们下次见。
That's it for today. We hope you enjoyed our discussion of the Nightingale, but better yet, you might enjoy reading this story yourself. We wish you the best of luck. Hopefully, we'll help you understand it, or we will have helped you understand it when you read it yourself. From all of us here at English Digest, my name is Tom.
And I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.